Hey everybody, I'm Alex McClellan.
And I'm Mason McClellan.
And we're the Backtrack Brothers. Today, we're going to review Jumanji, the 1995 film starring Robin Williams. It's an action, comedy, fantasy movie, not really sure how to categorize, it's kind of its own thing. But yeah, today we're going to start spoiler-free. We're going to talk about, acting performances, visuals, soundtrack, all that type of stuff. Then, swerving into the spoiler zone, right?
Yes.
Just going to go hard on it. We are going to spoil this movie more than Jaden Smith. Also want to know if you happen to hear any buzzing sound in the background, that's my neighbor being a complete jagoff and running a gas-powered leaf blower at 6:30 in the afternoon when people are trying to enjoy their dinners. And I also am not concerned about him finding this, seeing it. I kind of hope he fucking does. We'll cut that out, So let's start with a quick plot synopsis, all right, Mason? All right, so 1969 is the year that's taking place at the start of this film. A boy named Alan finds a mysterious board game that unleashes a world of adventure and such. It also happens to suck him into the game. That's where we start. 26 years later, another pair of kids find this game and continue where Alan left off.
Yes.
Kind of like to leave it there. I don't want to get too much into the weeds a bit because, I think most people know about Jumanji at this point, and it's not the most
elaborate.
Yes, exactly. It's not the most complicated plot in the world. So that's where I'm going to leave it. Mason, where were you kind of first exposed to Jumanji? Was it with the newer movies, or did you see the older one first, or what's
So kind of like Jurassic Park, I only saw the two newer movies with like The Rock and Kevin Hart or Jack Black or whatever. Yeah. Now seeing this older one, and again, just like Jurassic Park, it's different. It has a different tone. It has a different feel. Again, it's not a video game. Like the newer ones, it's a board game. So it's like.
So actually, I didn't know that. So the newer Jumanjis are based on a video game?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
pretty
they
cool.
boot up. Yeah, they boot up a little TV. They choose their characters, and those characters that they choose are what they go into Jumanji as.
Ah, gotcha. So my personal history, we kind of talked about my VHS collection when I was a kid from the 90s, and so we talked about that in the Jurassic Park video. Jurassic Park was one of those VHSs. This was another one of those VHSs.
Yes.
The Jumanji VHS, I should have looked into research out of this, but I'm sure that Jumanji VHS sold very, very well. Everyone I knew had it. So this was one, as a kid, I was born in 91. This movie came out in 95, so it was probably coming out in VHS in like 96. So I'm 5, 6 years old. I didn't see it in the theater, but I saw it pretty soon once it came out in VHS. As a kid, you're blown away. CGI was, kind of coming in with its own at this time, and we'll talk about how the visuals hold up later. We'll talk about that later. At the time,
it was good.
At the time, it was very impressive, and as a kid, you're just so mesmerized by all these animals. You don't really think about the plot or the story of what's going on behind anything. We'll talk about that as well later. We'll kind of talk about how my perception of it now as an adult has obviously changed from when I was a 5-year-old or 6-year-old. But yeah, this movie I was very deeply connected to.
I actually want to ask you about a question. So when you were a kid, did you think the board game was real? Like, did you think if you bought the board game that monsters would actually come out of it or whatever?
Well, so I was a kid, so I had a particularly active imagination, and my mom liked to kind of lean into that. So when I would start to kind of get theories like that, she didn't really shoot them down. So, so I wouldn't be surprised if I did think. My mom, it kind of goes into what we're going to talk about, but my mom is, well, just put it this way, she's a certified Reiki teacher. She's into that whole spirituality and elements and crystals and all that shit, right? So when I would bring up something like, oh, is magic real?
She'd be like,
kind of put her in a pickle, right? Because you can't say magic's not real, but then be like, well, this crystal, if you rub it on your skin, So it kind of put her in a position. She's like, oh, maybe there is a game like that out buried in Africa somewhere. You don't know. So to answer your question, probably yes, but not because of good reasons. Probably just because I had a parent who didn't show me the right way. But they did end up selling the Jumanji board game, of course, and obviously it doesn't work that way. So I think I did end up playing that Jumanji board game at some point, and I probably was a little disappointed.
Yeah,
probably. I forgot how much this is kind of like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Like for kids at least, that definitely functions. Like the tension and the animals being attacked by those different things.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think for a lot of kids in my age range, that probably was one of their earlier kind of tense. There's some dark scenes in there.
Yeah,
there's some scary shit. There's some stuff that would freak out a 6, 7, 8-year-old.
Yeah.
So, we'll talk more about that later. Yeah, let's start getting into the nuts and bolts of this, of the film. Let's start talking about visuals. Mason, you want to kind of start maybe talk about any highlights, lowlights that you picked out?
So I only have lowlights.
Only have lowlights?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
If you want to start with the highlights, then we
no, actually, I gotta have like a sequential order of each of the animals' events that happen.
Yeah.
I know. Look, I get it. I guess you could categorize this as spoilers, but really, they're not instrumental to the plot for the most part.
Yeah.
They're just things that happen that are roadblocks throughout the story. The first things we see, right? So we see the first thing we really see. We hear bats. But the real first thing we see is Alan getting sucked into the game. I want to hear your reaction on how you think that held up.
I have it in my notes here too. He turned flat and he was like slowly just extended into it, making that noise. It was so sloppy, it was so slow, it looked so unrealistic.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that The Matrix came out 4 years after that. Think about that.
That was the first thing we were shown.
Yeah.
Like, that was our X-ray, or that was the bar.
Right.
So
right.
I think everything past that exceeded it, maybe by a little bit, maybe by a lot, but...
So maybe they actually thought this is our worst effect. Let's just toss this in at the start, set the bar low, and then, when we bring in the rhino, it's not that bad. It is. So yeah, I agree. I think him getting sucked into the game looks pretty bad. I do like the visual effect when they're looking into like the glass. They do that fish lens looking up at their faces. Yeah, I do like that. I thought that was really cool. But yeah, him getting sucked in, not great. What do you think about the bats? I thought the bats, they're moving fast, so it kind of makes up for some stuff, right?
But I thought it was passable.
Yeah, it was. Yes, that's the right term for it. They were passable. They weren't great. I will say the bat that was on her shoulder, that was a puppet. It like turns and like like yeah, that wasn't great. It made me laugh though. That was pretty good. There is some top tier unintentional comedy in this movie, and I have a whole list of lines that we'll touch on in the spoiler section. So stay tuned for that. What happened to my voice? Next thing that we saw was giant mosquitoes. What did you think about those?
I thought they looked fine.
I think they fall into the bat category, right? Anything that is flying and moving quickly kind of gets the benefit of the doubt with CGI.
You can't really notice or like pick it apart that well.
Exactly. Compared to the next thing we're going to bring up, the monkeys.
Oh my god.
So
they look okay. Can I start?
Absolutely.
They look greasy. They look fake. The lighting reflected off them looked super bad. They didn't look fuzzy at all. Their faces were like all messed up.
Yeah, it had like a blue hue, didn't it? Like the outside had this blue hue to it. And like it's so clearly CGI. Yeah. It is by far the worst offender of this movie. And what makes it 1,000 times worse is that they're central to the plot. Like, they are the one animal that actually impacts the whole time. Not just impacts the story, everything. Like they send everything to a shitstorm. We'll get more into that later. But yeah, so the monkeys look terrible, and it makes it that much worse that they're throughout the whole film, as opposed to just appearing in one section and then going away. That really should have probably been what happened. Next up, lion. What did you think about the lion?
Passable.
Passable, especially early. Like when you first see it, it actually looks practical, but then once it starts moving around the house, that's when you start having trouble.
But like, it's good, and I thought especially for when the movie came out and with the other shit that's in this movie, I feel like it stood out as something that was good.
I agree. I think it's more of a positive compared to the other things that we're gonna probably talk about here. Yeah, actually, let's talk about this. The vines, which looked oddly phallic. Yeah,
they did not. They were like
and
really
rubbery.
Slow, rubber moving.
Yeah, looks like they wanted to get sprayed with KY jelly.
They did not look great or family friendly.
No, it kind of looked hentai-ish.
Yeah, very much.
And you can just spend some time thinking about what you think the yellow bulb is supposed to be. All right, next thing we'll talk about, let's talk about the Stampede.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
I mean, again, it's like a fast-moving thing, so you can't really pick it apart too much, so I thought it was solid.
I'll say, so yeah, I think the first Stampede is better. The part where they're going through the hallway and Judy gets ripped out, that looks pretty bad in that split second, but it's just a split second. Maybe people probably won't even notice it. But then what my issue is with the Stampede is that they're used, once again, like the monkeys. They're used throughout the film. They appear like 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
And it's hit or miss for me, right? Like storming through through the house is pretty good. Story through the city, like through the town is good where they're crashing the car.
There's little moments.
There's little moments where it looks really bad, and also the final one where you see the ant watching them and they're just in broad daylight going and they're the only thing going down the street. That also, I think, you can kind of see the warts on it a little bit there. But yeah, in general, passable. Dive more into this in the spoilers, but just a preview for that, the Pelican's a douche. That Pelican is a straight dickhead.
He went out of his way.
He had motives.
Yeah.
No other animal in this movie has motive. The Pelican does. Why the Pelican? I like that that's the choice. The Pelican will come in and fuck all this up. Delay the movie by 30 minutes. Of all the things, there's rhinos, elephants, all this stuff. Nope, the Pelican. And then the Pelican shows up, the tone changes. Like the score was like menacing with the story.
Yeah.
And then here comes the Pelican. And he just takes the thing, just flies away. I'm like, what? Yeah, that was just like, it was a weird addition. But anyway, I like the house when it's portrayed as a jungle.
Yeah, I thought that looked pretty
I thought it looked pretty cool. The mandatory mystery mist. There's always just a fog over the ground for no reason. I don't know how that works. I'm not a chemist or a botanist or whatever. I don't know what plant just creates mist that floats no higher than 1 foot off the ground. But I want it for my backyard because that would be pretty cool. I think that would be a good self-defense for your yard.
What, just mist?
Yeah, just mist. Whatever the plants are, like
You put some like bear traps in your yard?
No bear traps. Just think about it. Like your house, all the houses around you are clear. It's night, moonlight shining through. Your house, mist. Can't even see your house. There's so much mist. That would be freaky. Nobody would go in there. Monsoon croc scene.
I thought it was fine.
Okay.
You might think it differently, but I thought, I mean, again, it was darker, misty, whatever. You couldn't see the crocodile like super well.
Yeah.
But I thought overall it didn't look the worst.
Yeah, no, I would say, so one thing, and they even kind of playfully say it, right? In the beginning when they realized the monsoon that's going, what's the rain? Rain's never hurt anything.
Oh yeah, they kept doing that foreshadow.
Yeah, exactly. And then having a little bit of rain could kill, more rain could kill you, whatever. And yeah, dude, I will say, even when you're a kid, you probably think, monsoon, water, or whatever. Like, they actually make it terrifying. That's one of the scarier sequences in the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, I do think it's a little unfair of the game. It says monsoon. It doesn't say anything about crocodiles. I feel like that was just like a wild card he threw in. Oh, the monsoon's not enough crocodiles. and I will also say this: the crocodiles are not great. They're kind of like floating buoys. And it kind of reminds me of, have you ever seen Ace Ventura When Nature Calls?
Yeah.
There's a scene, remember when he's fighting the alligator and he's making it hit it, so stop hitting yourself, stop hitting yourself. Like, it looks like that. And it's like,
I can see where you're coming from.
I'm just saying, like, I want my crocodile to be like ferocious. And like, she was just like standing on its mouth. Like, yeah, it was just quicksand. So I did say the monkeys were the worst.
I still think the monkeys are the worst.
Really?
Just a smidge.
It's tough. They're competing against each other for worst visual
still
effects.
going into the board games thing, which is also...
Yeah, but the quicksand, it literally, like, they just took like the most basic digital effect you could find. Just make the floor a little fuzzy. Like, that's really all they did was like desaturate the floor a little bit.
And slowly lowered the guy.
Right, exactly. It's a weird visual, and then it just, I don't know. I don't think it aged well. And even as a kid, I don't think I really was impressed by that.
Yeah.
I think it's scary. The concept of quicksand's scary, especially when you're a kid and you think that it's actually like out in the world.
Yeah.
And you become like an adult and you don't live in a third world country and you realize it's nowhere. There is no quicksand. Quicksand's a myth made by the government. Okay.
This camera's in the quicksand.
I'll tell you where the WMDs are. They're in the quicksand.
The birds are in the camera. Or, no, not the birds are in the cameras. The cameras are in the birds.
The cameras and the birds, and then the birds go in the quicksand and then report what they find to the CIA. That's what happens.
And that's why they go on the poles outside so that they can charge.
Yeah, they charge on the poles, and then they come out, they watch all of us, and then they dive down into the quicksand and report to their elder lords. All right, we are so off track. All right, I think the one scene that was the biggest difference from me as a kid to watching as an adult are the spiders. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid,
probably terrified.
Dude.
Yeah.
That spider coming down, that actually does still look good. The spider coming down the window, that's effective, but then you see the spiders.
Yeah.
And their legs don't move. Like, they're clearly marionette puppets. Like, They just scurried across.
It looks like they're skipping.
Yeah.
Like their movements don't match with their legs.
Exactly.
It's really unnatural.
It's very unnatural, so you can tell it's fake. And then on top of that, like when the earthquake comes, spoiler alert, earthquake happens, they scatter. It's so obvious. It's fast. It's like fast forwarded footage of the marionette people just drawing away. It looks really bad. Just look at it when you get a chance. But like, you're probably so distracted by how bad the earthquake looks that you don't notice what's going on with the spiders. Let's actually just move into that because that is the next thing.
Yes.
The earthquake.
It did not look great.
And it's like, this is the end of your movie, man.
Yeah,
like,
this is the climax.
Yes, and we know Mason loves climaxes. And when you... when Mason wants a climax, he wants it to hit hard, man. You don't want one of those weak, half-assed climaxes.
Exactly.
It's like, you know.
You gotta go all in.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want one of those sad, half-happy. Yeah, I mean, you know.
Yeah, you want a good ending.
Yeah, you want a happy ending. Exactly. Like an effective, strong, and when you see that little mini diorama of some bullshit White House replica cracking in half, that's not what I'm looking for. That's not it. It's not how I would want to end the movie. Like if I'm going through the editing or the film creation process, I'd be like, all right, we gotta nail the spiders, or we have to nail the earthquake. We gotta hit one of these, and getting a close up of the spider's fangs isn't doing it. That's not enough. I'm sorry. Sorry, my bar's up here. I want a real looking earthquake.
Yes.
Sorry, my cat just walked in. Kitty.
Can't be doing that.
Kitty, that picks up on the mic. Kitty. All right, man, so what's your thoughts on the soundtrack score of this movie?
So it didn't stand out to me.
No.
It just felt like an action movie score. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts, because...
Yeah, no, I thought there were some high points. Well, I bring this up, so I think one of like, you know, this kind of get more into the niche of the soundtrack score area of it, but the drum sound for the board game. What did you, like, I mean, I will always remember that, just from my childhood and all that stuff. Now watching it as an adult, I think they could have done something better.
Yeah.
I think they could have done something more memorable, more unique, especially because there's no explanation of the drums.
And it doesn't sound like super like mysterious to where the kids are like, yo, what's that sound? I think it's something weird or magical or whatever. It doesn't really give off that vibe at all.
Right, I agree. I think it's something that, you know, it's just a kind of a generic sound. I would have liked them to find something a little bit more unique.
Yeah.
Or maybe throw in some like animal sounds or something on top of it to make it really weird. Like do something that makes it a little bit more unique than just that doom, 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 doom. I would say one thing that this movie, it's tough. I feel bad for the person who had to do the score for this, is that the tone changes throughout the movie so much. Like it'll go from sad to happy to wistful to horror scene to, like, it does kind of keep going through those different tones. So there's a lot of shifts. So it's not like you have one common theme. Like if you just have one pure horror movie where you're just kind of living in that feeling the whole movie, the guy who's making the score can kind of just build and revolve around that. Versus this movie, he's got to have like 8 different moods, you know what I mean? And there's really only like one song for each mood because each one's only like, you know, played for like a minute or two. So it's just one of those things where I think, like you said, it doesn't stand out. It's not anything special, but I also think that's kind of just built into what this movie is. There's an opportunity for the score to really excel. All right, Mace, let's go into acting performances. Let's start with Robin Williams, who plays the lead as Alan Parrish. What were your thoughts on him?
So first off, I noticed we just did Jurassic Park, main character's name Alan. This guy's name Alan. Perfect correlation. But anyway, I thought he was great. Yeah. Even as like, you know, he starts as this guy who's like, oh, everything's new to him. And he's like exploring, he's acting all crazy and whatever. And I think he does a great job as that. But one thing that was weird that I noticed, as soon as he shaves, his mood completely switched. Smug and charismatic or whatever. Yeah. And he was like, this like complete like badass. And
yeah, exactly. No, it's interesting too. One thing I really like about his performance, and him and Bonnie Hunt, who plays Sarah Whittle, which we'll talk about her next, they both do a really good job of portraying the Arrested Development aspect of they're both children in adult bodies. Yes. Like, you know, he got shipped into the game when he was a young kid and had to survive in this jungle. So he's not interacting with other humans, he's not in the school system, he's not growing other than just learning how to survive in the wild, which is good, but at the same time, you know, he's still gonna have some childish qualities, which you see throughout the film, like when he's arguing with Sarah during the board game and like, I know you are, or what am I? Like all that type of stuff. You see that kid stuff come up both for him and Bonnie Hunt. I just think that was really impressive of him.
I didn't notice that.
Oh yeah, and one thing that's really cool about Robin Williams, that's just a skill of his, being able to be like portray and have the energy of a kid in an adult body. Yes. I'll be very honest with you. it's something I always aspire to, and I hope I do to this day, as evidenced by this YouTube channel.
Yes.
Like, I just enjoy having fun and being passionate and making people laugh and just having fun. And I think part of that was growing up with Robin Williams as one of my core people. So I don't know how much do you know much about Robin Williams' career leading up to it?
Yeah.
So just going into Robin Williams in movies, in the 90s, he was really, for all of us kids, right? He was the voice of Genie in Aladdin, so which was really the best part of Aladdin. Let's be very real. So all the kids know him from that, right? Then you got Mrs. Doubtfire, came out in 93. I don't know if you've ever watched that film, but that was a classic movie. It's about divorced parents, and it's something that was a good family movie. That's a great one. Flubber came out a couple years after this movie. You ever hear about Flubber?
I heard about it.
Oh yeah, Flubber was a big one that came out in 97. You obviously had this movie that came out in 95. You had Hook, which I told you a little bit about in the last video, where he plays an adult Peter Pan in a Steven Spielberg movie with Peter Hoffman playing Hook. Really good movie. Another one, and then Jack, which is literally about a kid in an adult's body. So it's literally a whole movie based on that premise with him.
Yeah.
So all those movies came out in the early to mid 90s and were all open to kids. Maybe they weren't all 100% geared towards kids, but they were open for kids to watch. And that was humongous. Before that, he actually got big as a stand-up comedian and on TV. So he had his first big stand-up comedy special come out in 78. He had another two come out between then and 83. In 78 as well, he got a hit TV show called Mork and Mindy. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Yeah, so Mork was a spin-off character from Happy Days and got his own show. He was an extraterrestrial that came to the Earth, and Mindy was a human roommate that he had.
Yes.
So Robin Williams was playing this alien and like making fun sound effects and whatever, and kind of doing his stand-up shtick to some degree. So, and he was known in the stand-up community as being very animated, high energy, had an allergy problem. But he was loved by everybody, especially once you start doing this kid stuff. And then he also I didn't appreciate this until I was in college and older. He also has some really amazing serious roles, which you probably heard Dead Poet Society, which you'll watch in high school.
Yeah.
You will watch it. It's an English lit thing. You'll probably watch it in English class. Right? I would suggest you watch it just in general. It's a great movie. And then he also has Good Will Hunting, which I think is his best acting performance. He's amazing. He's a therapist. It's him and Matt Damon working across from each other, and they just are electric. I love that movie. You need to watch it. You probably want to be a little bit older to really appreciate it, but it's an awesome movie. So what I'm trying to get at with this long diatribe of Robin Williams' career is what's amazing is that Robin Williams was around since the mid 70s, and he was killing it through the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And then he started, he was like a background character in Night at the Museum and shit like that. And, he kind of fell off. He did make 2 stand-up specials in the 2000s, which are both really good. I would highly suggest them if you're into stand-up comedy. It gets a bit political, so just be aware. I'll just say, I'm going on this long time. I love Robin Williams. He's a huge influence for me. I'm absolutely devastated. I was devastated when I heard about him passing. I wasn't surprised because of what I mentioned earlier, but it hurts and it stinks, and I don't even like thinking about it now because he was such a positive, strong person in the movie and comedy sphere. And it stunk to lose him because I wish he was around to continue being a great older actor because he would have been amazing.
And now you have a reason to talk about him.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, trust me, this is not the last movie we will have of Robin Williams. There's a lot. Oh, he stars in a horror movie called 1 Hour Photo. Now we will get off Robin Williams. I'm sorry, but he is amazing in this film. He really carries it. I actually was thinking when I was watching it, if it was Brendan Fraser in this role, this movie would be knocked down 2 stars. 100%. Robin Williams, just with his charisma and attitude and just his natural humor, just brings so much to this movie that a bland actor, sorry Brendan, just wouldn't be able to bring. All right, so now we're gonna talk about Bonnie Hunt, who plays Sarah Whittle. Do you notice he says it that way every first episode? Sarah Whittle. Whittle.
It's like a 2-year-old saying whistle.
It is. It's very weird. It's very weird. So, but yeah, what did you think about her?
So I thought that she did a really good job at like portraying her distaste for the board game and like her PTSD for it.
Yeah, she does.
And her emotion towards it. She does a really good job at presenting herself as this board game affected her emotionally. And it really comes out.
Impact her whole life. Like, and yeah, I agree. There's a scene, we're not getting into spoilers, but there's a scene where Robin Williams and Bonnie Hunt are kind of comparing the traumas that they went through during these last 26 years since he's been gone. And you realize it's not that different, right? Even though he was sent into the jungle, you realize she was basically ostracized and put in her own little jungle. We're not going to go into too much details, but yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a very interesting point. I kind of talked about it before, but you saw that Arrested Development that I was talking about, that you also mentioned here, that you can clearly see the impact that that trauma had, or that incident, and you find out throughout the story that she did try and do the right thing, but even through that, it sucks. Like, it's just not great. But I really think that she also does a really good job with playing a psychic, spiritual person in terms of like, there's a few times where she brings up like fate, like she was like, you think it's an accident you ended up in the jungle? There are no accidents.
And
like,
she also brings up like zodiac signs and like stuff like that.
Exactly. All very good psychic bullshit. And it was very good job by the writer and the filmmakers to add those little lines to make that character believable and not just be an afterthought that she's a psychic, because they could have just not talked about it really, you know. I'll also say I think that her and Robin Williams just have good natural chemistry acting across from each other. So I think, sometimes you have pairings in movies that don't work well. I think this is one of them that does. All right, Mason, so did it blow your mind when you saw Kirsten Dunst as a young girl, or do you even know who Kirsten Dunst is? Let me ask that.
I know that she was the girl in the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
That's it.
I see, I don't really, so she is in a lot of other stuff, but yeah, she's a really great actress. But yeah, you would know her from the original Spider-Man trilogy. But no, how did you like her performance as Judy?
I thought she was good. Yeah. I thought she didn't have like the biggest role, so she didn't have the most time to shine, but I still thought that she performed well.
I think she shined early on though. Like, I agree, over the course of the movie, she has less lines and less to do. But for example, when you first meet her and she makes up that whole thing about her parents. Yeah. Oh my Lord, I think that's vicious. Like, she's so witty. Like, you see it right off the bat. She's witty, she's smart. She's cold. Like, she purposely wants to mess with people, and you obviously see that's a bit of a defense mechanism. I really like Kirsten Dunst in general, and it's wild to see her. She had those acting chops at that age. She was somebody you could tell back then, like, she's gonna be somebody.
I mean, there was like a few scenes I noticed, like in that scene where they just make the time jump and she makes up all that stuff about her parents. Yeah. She kind of sounds like an NPC giving you a side quest when she's doing certain monologues. But other than that, like, I thought, like they were trying to convey that she was smart and witty and whatever. But I feel like they kind of went a little bit, or she went a little bit too hard on it.
That's fair. Well, I think that was supposed to be the effect, is like these kids, she's been through her parents dying, so she has just this hard exterior that she can joke and say anything. That's how I interpreted it. Yes. So you're wrong. No. I'm kidding. Your opinion is totally valid, but wrong. One thing I do want to know about her, I do like the brother-sister dynamic, because you can tell they care about each other, but it's also believable that they're not like super lovey-dovey, like all we do is care about each other. They also have those moments where they bantering and yeah, exactly. I think it's a believable brother-sister dynamic that I enjoyed. Yeah. Bradley Pierce played Peter. What did you think about his performance?
I mean, there were a few moments where it felt like he was struggling a little bit to read his lines.
He's supposed to be playing a quiet, timid kid, especially early in the movie. I think he does a good job of that. You actually see the character development over the course of the movie. You see he kind of jumps into action later in the movie, which is kind of cool to see. There's one part where he breaks the fourth wall that I'm not a fan of. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'll talk about that later. That really bothered me. But no, I think he did a pretty good job, but I think it's also worthy to note that he's not an actor anymore. All right, so let's talk about the last cast member we're going to talk about in full detail. David Alan Grier, who plays the cop. His name's Carl. What do you think of Carl?
I think Carl is fine.
Oh, Carl's awesome.
Carl's like, he's a good break from all the action. Yes. He's a good he's a good character to put comedy into. His reactions are great.
Exactly.
Whatever.
No, I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he does a great job with the comedic timing. So he has a comedy background. He was like on the show In Living Color. You ever hear that show? No. So that was a 90s sitcom show that was kind of like a cooler, hipper version of Saturday Night Live. Jim Carrey actually came from there. Yeah, and so he was really funny. I knew he was in a lot of movies back in the 90s and in that time frame, so he was really popular. I think he did a great job. We'll talk about some specific lines of his later, but yeah, I think throughout the movie, between him and the car, there's so many great comedic bits. We are now entering the spoiler zone.
Yeah, so from this point on, it's going to be all about the plot, so if you don't want to hear about what's going to happen next, go now.
Yeah, we're going to try and go in sequential order, basically from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, and try to hit topics in that order, but we are going to kind of jump around. We're going to have timestamps in the description, so if you want to hit on certain things, feel free, but we highly encourage you to watch the full thing.
Yeah.
Of course. All right, Mace, you want to get us started with some of your little, whatever little dumb things you noticed?
Yeah. one thing that I noticed right away, and that was like right at the start, the Bullies. Very really stereotypical. This weird dynamic between.
Let's get them! Oh, friggin' 50s bikes. Pedaling hard, no brakes. Sorry, go ahead.
This weird dynamic between, like, you know, they have a reason for him to bully him. It's about this weird girl, and it's like, we're just friends. Oh, not anymore. And they start, you know, chasing after him. It's just very stereotypical. Give me if you've seen Stranger Things. Yeah. Stranger Things, Bullies vibes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's also, you know, Stranger Things is ripping off these corny 80s, 90s films that had this bullshit, right? So, yeah, but you're 100% right. And not only, if you just think about it from a macro perspective, that was in front of his dad's business and right in front of that construction site, which is right across the street as well.
Yeah.
So there was probably about 100 adults that watched him get his ass kicked.
And no one stopped him.
His dad encouraged it. He's like, you're outnumbered, get out there and take that ass beating like a man.
And he was like, oh good, you stood up for yourself. He didn't stand up for himself, he just stood there and just got beat up.
Right, we didn't see if he threw a single punch. I kind of wish they would show him get his ass beat a little bit. They just go right behind the tombstone. I would have like, give me a kick or a punch or something. Like, I don't know. You just give me the blood at the end and he wipes it. I want something more than that. Give me some Fight Club shit. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. That was a huge thing that stuck out to me. I will say, talking about the opening of the movie, pretty quick pace. Like, we get that opening scene where it's it's supposed to be even further back from 1969, and they're getting rid of this board game originally. And so that kind of is like a cold open. You're like, oh, what the hell is going on? And then boom, you're in 1969. We're moving. He's moving through town. The cops stopping traffic just for him. Like, that was one thing I did like, that at least, even though there's some weird stuff going on, at least it was fast. Like, the bullet thing was 30 seconds. If they spent 5 minutes on it, that would have been a real issue. You know?
Yeah. I was gonna say something about the pacing too. It's so many time jumps. They go from the 1800s to the 1960s to 26 years later. Yeah. Like, all within the first 15 minutes.
So they jump back in time after they beat the game, and then after they go back in time, it jumps forward in time, and they never tell you they jump forward in time. You just need to figure it out when you see adult Alan. But it's just one of those things where, like, yeah, the time jumps are a bit much. You know, especially as a kid, I imagine people getting confused by all those time jumps. So, you know, and sometimes they did a good job of highlighting it and making it clear when and where you were going, but to your point, sometimes it wasn't very clear.
Yes.
One thing in general I liked about this movie, I think the comedy of it generally lands, and then you also have the unintentional comedy, which I have a whole collection of lines. I want to save those to the end, though. Okay, yeah, cool. So I literally have a collection of like 8 lines that are just, if you just take them out of context and just talk, it is just they're very odd lines. But yeah, no, I think, you know, it helps having Robin Williams. Obviously, he's just great at delivery, but even the other characters, like when you're talking about when Sarah gets introduced and she just eats it going backwards, and then Peter says, "You killed her." That was really good. That was one of Peter's highlights, to be honest. You know, there's just good little comedic beats like that. You know,
and especially Carl.
Yeah, and Carl, and everything with Carl. I mean, that car, by the end of it,
the car is completely fucked.
It's completely jacked, and it's so funny when he's like in the hardware store, he's pulling it out, he's filling the oil, as if that has any impact on what's going on with that car. It has no brakes, no bumpers, no lights, no door, and he's like, I'll top off the oil, make sure I don't want to run out. Ridiculous. Love Carl. Talking about, you know, we're talking about that fight scene being in a construction site. Let's just veer right into the construction site scene. So, you know, Alan gets his ass beat, and then naturally hears drums, and which, you know, I might have thought maybe it's just a tumor. Maybe you just got your ass handed to you and your head's ringing a little bit. Maybe you shouldn't go wandering on a construction site with live work going on.
That's a good point.
I mean, these are all things I wasn't thinking about when I was 7, but I'm watching as a 30-year-old, and I'm like, go, little kid, no, you're gonna die. He can be concussed.
Yeah.
He's just walking around. It's unbelievable. The amount of lack of care of children in these older movies is so apparent now. It's amazing. One thing that threw me off, did it throw you off how basically just everyone leaves him alone in the construction site?
That's a good point.
It was something, but you know what's fun? So I watched it twice within a 24-hour period because I'm a psychopath and like to be very, very detailed on this shit. It turns out in the background, as he's walking to the construction site, it's very easy to miss this. There's a truck that pulls up. There's a nondescript logo on it, but then it honks. And when it honks, everyone on the construction site turns and looks at it and starts walking to the truck. That's why it clears out like that. I don't know if it's lunch, urine test, whatever, but something happened that drew the attention of everyone away from the construction site. So if anyone was just curious of how that ended up happening, like I was for the last 20 plus years, There's your answer.
It's not even like that great of an excuse. You're telling me everyone was only looking at the truck like my goal is the truck. That's it.
If it's lunch hour, you'd be amazed those lazy sons of bitches, dude. They don't have any excuse to stop work. Horn, I'm out. Like, they just drop their shit. You know how we watch them. Most of them have power tools that throw it on the ground. I have time to eat a sandwich. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I'll have to ask my friends that are like in manual labor if that's how that works. If it's like, if that horn blows, everyone just drops their shit and goes. Yeah. Those unions, man. Unions are strict, dude. Unions are the real deal. We don't need to have a union discussion right now. I'm sorry. I'll tell you about unions. Unions operate the birds, and the birds fly into the quicksand, and they tell the capitalists, who gave us a camera? Well, there should be a background check for buying a camera, just like when you buy a gun, because it's just as damaging. All right, so one thing I think we need to talk about in this little extra bit section, we need to talk about Alan's parents. So first off, little fun fact, Alan's mom in the 1969 scenes is Tammy One from the show Parks and Rec. That was a fun little find I had. If you're into Parks and Rec, enjoy that nugget, because my wife loved it when I realized it. Blew her mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, they suck. Like, as parents.
Yeah, the dad is arguing with him like he's like an older brother.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, yeah, oh, dude, it's the classic move. You are going to the boarding school and I don't want to hear another word about it. That's like a really effective way to parent your child. That's how it was in the 60s, man. He's lucky a belt didn't get pulled out.
I mean, he's like slamming a door like while walking out of the room.
Yeah.
Like an older brother.
Yeah.
It's not like an actual parent confronting your child.
Well, there's all types of red flags in this scene, right? I mean, the fact that, you know, eventually what ends up happening, he ends up coming back at the end of the movie, and there's this little girl in the room with it, in the house, alone with his boy, and you can give a shit. He's 10 years old.
He looks at her.
Yeah, exactly. He even looks at her, and like, maybe he's impressed. I don't know, but he probably shouldn't be leaving a boy and a girl in their, who knows what their age were. I'm just saying they might have been fucking. That's all I'm getting at. That's all I'm getting at. In that size house especially, there's so many rooms to hide. Way too many rooms.
Playing board games, don't we?
Yeah. It's like the real life game of Clue. I think Mason did it with a Kleenex in the kitchen. You can tell his parents do love him. I think they're just extremely superficial and they're all about the family name and all that pompousness because obviously they own the town. Mm-hmm. Like the grandfather's got a general, whatever their last name is, has a statue out in the middle of the town. Yes. Like they run this town. So it's just, you know, I guess we're lucky to have very loving parents that aren't as superficial as those, and we have better values than those douchebags in the movie.
Yes.
Yeah, to put it eloquently.
So I wanted to touch on the ending real quick.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved the little twist.
Yep.
And wrapped things up nicely.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know. It definitely bumped up the Holdupability.
Did it throw you off? Did you put it together that it was going to go back to 1969?
No.
Because I know when I was younger, I didn't understand this. Like, it really took me until I was an adult watching this movie to fully grasp what happened. Yeah. And that the game was started in 1969.
Yes.
So really, Alan going into the game and Sarah being traumatized by the game are negative ramifications that came as a result of the game. So that needs to be reversed because it's part of the rules, right? Once you beat the game, everything that comes as effective in this game is reversed and taken away. Mm-hmm. So when you realize the game started in 1969, not in 1994, or whatever the fuck it is in this movie. Yeah. So basically what I'm getting at, I think a lot of people just think, oh, it's gonna fix the house, we're gonna go back to the beginning of the day, the house come back together, but Robert Williams will still be this age. Yeah. No, you go all the way back.
Everything goes
back. Right, and then once you realize that, I think the natural thing is, oh my God, the kids. Yeah. You know, which obviously you see Peter and Sarah as kids have that moment. It's sad, man. Like if you don't know what's gonna happen, then it's kind of a heartbreading moment. They actually think that they killed these kids.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, they think that they killed those kids by just, you know, saving their bacon. Yeah. And God, saving their bacon. What am I, 80? Save your bacon. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And look at the sundial. Figure out the time. Jesus. So, but no. And then the reveal of the kids coming out in the end. Mm. So that opens up. You open up a can of worms for me, man. So I want to talk about this. So in this other alternative reality, these parents of Peter and Judy went on this Canada trip and died, right?
Yeah.
And you obviously, there's the joke at the end, which is hilarious. I don't care who you are. If you watch this movie, you get to that end and they're like, we're thinking about going out to the Canadian Rockies. No! That is so funny. That is grade A gold, whole movie build up to a joke.
Yeah.
Very well done. Very well done. The dad is employed with, Robin Williams' company, right? With a pair of shoes.
Yes.
So does this mean when they went back in time, they made a plan? They're like, all right, we want Judy and Peter to not lose their parents. So we're gonna find their parents, get them to work for my company so I can control his work schedule and not let him go to Canada. Am I right? That's what happened, right?
Yeah, basically.
Right? Isn't that crazy? He went back. Literally, not only did Peter and Sarah save not only did Alan and Sarah save their own lives by finishing this game, they also saved Peter and Judy's parents' lives. It's really cool to think about.
Yeah.
It's just, it's the butterfly effect that I don't think that a lot of people thought about when they got to the conclusion. So it's a kind of like a really good adult twist that a lot of kids, it's gonna go over their heads. But for the adults in the room that are watching this, it's pretty good not to put on the ribbon at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to talk about, that was really funny. So when they're up in the attic, and this is after he sees the bat early on, they call it the pest control person.
Yeah.
I love that guy is just like the African bat expert. He just knows. And he's like, oh yeah, a girl said 26 years ago that she saw something like that in this house. Have you been the pest guy in this town for 27 years? You're the only pest guy? You have a monopoly on pest control in this New Hampshire town? I don't know, I just thought that was odd. It just reminded me, he just seems like the perfect harbinger of death that's always in these corny horror movies. I think you've seen enough horror movies at this point. There's always somebody early on, like, oh, you're going to the Williams residence, are you? I wouldn't go there if I were you.
Yeah.
Like, one of those guys, he's that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't be worried about the bats in this house. I'd be worried about the missing kid. Like, it's just very on point, you know what I mean?
They're in the walls. They're cut up in the walls.
Yeah, exactly. There's just so many, Texas Chainsaw Massacre has like the most like on the nose one, like the original back in the 70s, but like they're in everyone now. Have you ever seen Cabin in the Woods?
No.
Oh, you gotta see it. You'll love it. But that movie kind of just riffs on all of the stereotypes in horror movies, and they have like a really good harbinger scene and multiple scenes with him that are really good. So anyway, we're gonna move on from that. I just thought that was funny.
At first, they only released like bats and monkeys. And it doesn't seem like releasing all this other stuff or a chance of the monkeys and bats going back for it to really be worth it. I wanted to get your thoughts on what, like...
Well, so the first two things that came... Well, the things that came out before Robin Williams came out, right? So, the Mosquitos. And it was really the Mosquitos, the monkeys, and the tiger.
Yeah.
Those are the three that happened. All right. To your point, I agree with you. A group of monkeys and a group of giant mosquitoes should not be able to take down a town.
Yeah, exactly.
That being said, that's exactly what happened. Did you notice, like, it doesn't, like, when those things come out, they go out into the town, it's already shit's hit the fan. Like, the cop, like, before Alan even runs outside and jumps on the cop car and we meet Carl, like, as a cop, he's getting a report about the monkeys at that time. Like, shit's already going down. So, to your point, eventually, once, like, the National Guard, whoever got there, they probably would have been able to get the monkeys under control. But you still have to deal with all the danger and mayhem that happened as a result of those monkeys.
It just seems more like a zoo escape instead of, like,
natural
disaster.
But you gotta think, they're kids trying to, there's a huge mess in their kitchen. They're not gonna clean it up. They're gonna get in trouble. How are they gonna explain it?
But instead, they're gonna play this board game 10 more times to try and revert everything.
Yes. Well, how do you explain the man? Because to that point, Alan's like, this is my house. You better tell your aunt that I'm taking this back. Like, there's a lot of ramifications of this game. I think you're underestimating the ramifications. I mean, people are getting stabbed in the head with those mosquitoes.
Yeah, but just shoot them. Just shoot them or swat them or something.
I think you're underestimating how easy it is to shoot a flying mosquito. What do you think? I got tracer rounds? They're gonna follow like heat-seeking missiles? No, they fly around and they're gonna repopulate. They're gonna mate. Like, you can't have those. They're like, I mean, that's like you watch a Jurassic Park. Just let them wander around. They're just dinosaurs, which is kind of where they end up, honestly.
There's like mosquitoes and monkeys and then dinosaurs.
But they're not mosquitoes, though, man. They're giant mosquitoes. Did you see what the mosquito was doing to that car?
I know, but how many of them were there?
Enough. and like I just said, they're gonna mate. Hey everybody, in case you notice there's a slight lighting change that might have just occurred, our audio recording device's battery died and it was getting late, so we decided to postpone it to the next day, and now you're getting some sunshine in the room. So that explains what's happening. Now with our featured programming.
They are really PTSD torturing Judy. Like, Alan threatens her with a sword. He's like holding her hand, like, calm down, it's okay. Like setting her down, but like she clearly had some sort of bad experience with this board game, and he knows that, and I feel like he could be a little bit, or Alan could be a little bit calmer.
And this is, and I firmly disagree, because Robin Williams has been through way more shit than her, which he makes clear to her. They have a whole back and forth where she's like, I was alone too. No, you weren't. You were in your little house playing psychic. He was in the freaking forest fighting lions. Let's not act like you had the worst end of that exchange. You didn't. Sorry, I get it. Maybe I'm being a little insensitive to somebody who had the PTSD, but when it's specifically coming from the person who had the worst end of the stick, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt.
I mean, certain people have different like tastes on certain things. Like some people might get over it quicker than others. It's
Well, and here's the thing. If we were in a situation where she had all the time in the world to come to terms with what was going on, then maybe. But that wasn't happening. The whole thing was the kids need to get this all dealt with before the aunt came home so that they wouldn't get in trouble. That's it's a cat in a hat situation.
I find that stupid. Why is the aunt the biggest problem?
Because when you're a kid, getting in trouble is your biggest fear. It is, because your house is your world when you're a kid. You're not.
And you don't care about the world around you. You just care about.
Exactly. Yes. When you're that age, especially, for sure. And also, you got to remember, this is the early 90s. We didn't have the internet. I mean, this is a small town in bumfuck New Hampshire, and coming from somebody who grew up in a small town in New Hampshire, that's how it is. Like 100%. You don't think about who gives a shit what's going on in New York City. No one cares. There's no impact on us. One thing I liked as just like a movie trope that we see in here is the convenient hobo. Yeah. The guy who is, staying up in the factory in the 90s, and Alan runs up there to see. He thinks his dad's up there, and he finds this hobo, and conveniently, this hobo knows this guy's whole family history, tells him everything about his dad. No, I don't think anyone loved his son as much as your dad, that type of thing. And it was just really awfully convenient and funny that he was there.
Yeah, and it's a stereotype in a lot of movies that, hobos will always know everything, or there'll just be some wise man who will give some extra insight. Yeah,
some type of drifter, some guy that just comes into the story for 30 seconds, explains something that's pivotal to the plot, and then drifts away and never appears again. Yeah, exactly.
But one thing, though, that I think we both noticed is this hobo is like the most well-off a hobo can be.
Right.
He has clothes to give away. He has a roof over his head. He has like a well-trained dog. He has food, and again, he has clothes enough to give away.
Right.
Which is important.
Yeah, it's a pretty damn good situation for a hobo. That's for sure. Yeah. One character that I think is, he's kind of a minor character, but I think he really shines when he's on screen is Van Pelt, the hunter, not the exterminator, and and I just think the facial hair, the attitude, the accent, everything about him is amazing. I think he's awesome. I love the gun store scene, which is completely out of control. He walks in, I promise you that is not how gun purchases work. You don't just walk in, drop a handful of doubloons on the counter, and then everything shuts down and they give you the biggest gun in the place. That's not how that works. I promise you. Don't listen to the news.
Maybe it did in the 1990s.
No, it did not. I promise you, it did not. When Van Pelt originally walks up to the counter, he just asks for ammo for his gun. And the guy's like, this ammo has been made since the 1800s. That wasn't a red flag. And anyway, I just thought that was funny. But yeah, what did you think of the character?
I really think it was needed.
Yeah?
Just because of the whole threat was the Jumanji board game itself. And I feel like even if you just take out the hunter, nothing would really change.
No, I think it just kind of adds it definitely pads a little bit of runtime for sure. I wonder, so this movie is based on a book. I don't know if you knew that. So I wonder if that Van Pelt character and a lot of other things for that matter have a lot more backstory in the book. Alan explained to Sarah at one point, he clearly had ran into Van Pelt in the Jumanji world, and they had some type of personal history. They never actually explain it, but to your point, maybe if they did explain it, it would make him feel more ingrained in the plot.
Yeah.
What about him fighting the kids in the general store though? Do you like that little Home Alone setup?
Well, I don't like Home Alone.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just the fact that you're firing all these things. Yeah, so what? You just don't do you not like creative weaponry?
Well, it's not creative weaponry.
You don't think that's creative?
No, well,
I'm sorry, Mason. Is that something you do in your
No,
free
it's
time?
just it's not that I hate. The part that I hate is just the kids all of a sudden get the sudden urge to be super smart, super like tactical, smarter than the adults for no reason.
That's fair. That's a fair criticism of it.
Yeah.
But then, you just kind of need to realize it's a kid's movie. You got to understand that there are moments in kids' movies. No, because it was fair. Because it's something that frustrated me when I was probably around your age range, and you start noticing the stuff that is clearly nonsensical but geared towards children, is that in these types of movies, they're playing to the kids. They're not playing to the adults. So there's some things that, if you said that to the director, he'd be like, yeah, no shit. But it's a movie for kids, so we're gonna make them smart for no reason. You know what I mean?
Is Jumanji for kids though?
Yeah, 100%.
You think some of those scenes are for kids?
Really? Yes. What? PG tops. PG tops. Does anybody, I don't think anybody kisses. Is there a curse word in this movie? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Usually that's the barometer. Is there a nudity, cursing, or violence? And I don't think there's any of that.
Nah, even with the bullies, like mentioned before, they cut away from him getting
exactly. That's a great example. They didn't even have the balls to show a fight in the movie. It's definitely for kids. One thing I do want to call out, because I think some people might have had sympathy for Peter when he started turning into a monkey, but I think he deserved it. What are you doing trying to cheat in this game? You think this game's not smart enough to know that you cheated? Have you seen all the other shit that's gone down so far?
Yeah, like there's like elephants coming out of this board game, and you're like, if I do a little trick, the game won't know.
Right, I mean, it's even one of those things, like we see it in the first dice roll in this game is an accidental, actually the first 2 rolls in this movie are accidental dice rolls, where she just, Sarah as a kid just tosses the dice down, not thinking it would matter, because she's not going to move the piece, and then the piece moves by itself. Then Alan gets scared by a sound or something, drops it. So the board is smart enough to read dice rolls on, off the board, impact into the game, move the pieces, and then come up with a little phrase that turns into something out of life. But yeah, no, it wouldn't be able to figure out that you drop them straight down. I will say, and you brought this up a little bit before, when you were kind of like, why can't we just let the monkeys and mosquitoes run around and just close the game and get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
That being said, the monkeys and the mosquitoes basically single-handedly send that town into chaos.
Yeah.
Like everyone's looting, everything's being broken, it looks like New Orleans after floods. Like that's what it looks like. It's absolutely insane. I just can't imagine that happening because of some monkeys.
If monkeys ran out of like a zoo outside, or like some sort of animal, like Stampede, whatever, like people would put a stop to it. They'd put down the animals, whatever.
I mean, people in small towns in New Hampshire have guns.
Yeah.
Somebody would shoot those monkeys down. And also, it's pretty funny, they get riled up from watching Wizard of Oz. You notice that? Like, they see the Wizard of Oz, and that starts the riot. Which is, say what you will about Wizard of Oz. I've never seen it start a riot before.
Yeah. Even based on what we talked about the gun shop, I wouldn't be surprised if everyone had a gun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that gun shop's operating that way. Everyone in town's got a gun. Gold doubloons, here is your cannon.
Let's give some Tuck E. Cheese tokens, like, get naked, 47.
Oh, how many tickets? 20 tickets for each load of ammo. First line of the movie, we're talking, it's like the old flashback, we're talking about all these time jumps, right? But in the original scene, first line of the movie is, don't worry, it's just a pack of wolves. I just don't agree with that sentence in general.
Yeah.
Don't worry, it's just a pack of wolves. Who is so comfortable, other than, have you seen the lady that kisses wolves?
No.
Oh man, I gotta show you. Look it up on YouTube. Wait until you're done with this video. But once you're done with this one, look up woman kissing wolves. So unless you're that lady, be afraid of wolves. I'm just saying, PSA for everyone out there, unless you're making out with wolves, be very afraid of them. I love, as they're moving into the house, the aunt at one point says, all right, let's wrap up so we can have ice cream and bourbon. I just wanted to know. I'm hoping that she was the only one drinking the bourbon. And she wasn't just pouring it into ice cream to get the kids to fall asleep. Which is possible. I put in enough, Peter will talk. Let's just touch on that real quick. Right. I have no idea why Peter had to do that bullshit no talking thing. And they also abandoned it like a third of the movie. He starts talking to everybody. So I don't know what the hell. What was even the point of like introducing that as a thing?
I guess it just make him seem like traumatized, but again, it's like, he was in Jumanji.
I would like to see have that pay off with like a big speech in front of the town at the end or something. I don't know, like something that would have like spoke to that. But it just seemed like a weird trait for him to have, and then just shed a third of the way through the movie. We talked about that with we talked about that with Avatar. They had that with this whole wheelchair thing. It's like, all right, we got to make him seem even more helpless. Oh well, no, let's just get rid of that a third of the way through. Come on, man. At least if you're gonna get rid of it, give us a reason that it's gone. You know. I think it's kind of extreme that the rumor of Alan's disappearance, like across the whole town, everyone agrees his dad chopped him up and him in the wall.
No one questioned it at all.
Nope.
No one did any research. No one checked the walls.
No. Including when it's abandoned. They said the house was abandoned for years. You don't think if that was the rumor, somebody would have ripped open those walls at some point and tried to figure it out? Nope. They didn't even touch his room. Another question I have, why is his room just untouched? His parents, I understand his parents died, but they never like cleaned up his stuff or put his stuff away. They just literally sealed his room forever. I don't know. I've never lost a kid, so I don't know how I react. But that seems weird. Price check is a quote. That's when Kirsten Dunst shoots the hunter in the eyes with the scanner.
No way.
That's not how that works. No, I've done it. Me and my friends worked at grocery stores. We shot each other in the eyes with it. That's not how that works. It's bright for a second.
It's not like a flashlight. It's like a 10,000 lumen flashlight where it's like blinding you. It's
exactly.
Like
it's not like that.
a little barcode scanner.
Right, exactly. No, it's ridiculous. It's just the line, price check, beep. It was terrible. It was really bad. On the other side, flip side of the coin, Carl, one of my favorite line deliveries of the movie, when his car, that is just completely beat to shit at this point. At the end, he runs into the aunt, he's trying to help her. God bless Carl. He's been through all this shit. He goes across some lady on the side of the road, and he still stops to help her. He's not like, I gotta deal with the stampede, I gotta deal with monkeys, I gotta deal with all that stuff. No, I'm gonna help this woman. Like, what a just a nice, sweet guy. Anyway, you know, he's in the car, and then all of a sudden, you see the Vine dildo come in, and just come in, scare her out of the car, and just pull the whole car into the woods. And his reaction is, fine! Take it! Which is amazing. I just think that was an awesome line.
Yeah, definitely one of the comedic highs of this moment, or of this movie, is just watching the car get more and more and more destroyed.
Right, exactly.
Where it doesn't have a front like window, or like there's no doors.
No door. Like, you see the door ajar light is on, and he's just like, what am I gonna do? It's a little more. I'm sure we have viewers out there that drive around with their check engine light on. It's a little bit worse than that. The hobo. So we talked about convening hobo earlier, where Alan asks, oh, do you know where the Parrishes are? And the hobo says, I see them now and then. They're over on Adams Street. And then you flash cut to a tombstone of his parents. That's the worst way to tell someone their parents died. Oh yeah, I see them. They're over on this street. And then he just, think about that. He was, oh cool, you probably ran over there. He's all excited, my parents are alive. I can't wait to see them. Nope. And then he approaches, he's like, oh, there's a cemetery here. This is odd. I wonder, do they work in the cemetery? Oh. Yeah,
that's cold.
Yeah, it's not, like, if you actually put him in his shoes, like, live that time period between those cuts, it's a very sad, sad time. When Alan grabs the sword, which he unknowingly unsheaths across the room, I love that moment. That was a moment where you realize, oh yeah, he's a freaking kid in an adult's body. He doesn't know how to unsheath a sword. Before he goes to cut the vine, he yells, harvest time! Which is like, to me, one step away from garbage day. Like, it's literally like the next level down. Harvest time. Like Robin Williams, he's the master of improv comedy. He couldn't come up with a better line than that. That's not his line. That's not his line, I promise you. My least favorite line reading in the movie. Peter, after he cheats, you don't know he's cheated yet. You just hear him from the background. Judy! Like, just like, like I knew, I don't even want to hear what you have to say, because I know it's going to be shit. I know you suck. There's nothing good that follows that. If anyone says your name, Mason, like it's not.
Punch them in the face.
That's what I mean. Like, you're not looking forward to that conversation. Whatever follows that is not good. So just, I don't know why he had to say it like that, but it was, if he was trying to be annoying, freaking nailed it. So in the general store.
Yes.
Where the hunter, you know, Van Pelt baits her with the box, Sarah with the box, and Sarah runs up, tries to grab the box, and he pops up from the counter. It's such an obvious trap. Anyway, pops up, grabs her. He's holding the gun in the air. She's like, oh, your plan's not gonna work. Like, they don't want blah, blah, blah. And he just shoots his gun in the air. When he shoots his gun in the air, the camera shoots over to an aisle. There's a collection of people there, and they're all looters, right? And they're just looting a bunch of shit. The gunshots go off. They scatter.
Yes.
Except for one lady in a blue sweater who is the worst extra I've seen in a movie. She stands up, and there's 30 extras in the scene. 29 of them knew what to do. 29 saw her gunshots scattered. She stands up, big old glasses, big blue sweater, looks around like she's a lost 3-year-old. Until clearly a director points at her and says, "Get off the fucking stage!" And she, you can see it. You can see the moment it registers her head, and she scurries off stage. It's the funniest thing. Mason, please, right now in this video, play that little 3-second clip. It's hilarious.
All right.
Don't move, or I'll blow your blinking brains out.
Okay.
So one thing I brought up earlier, Mason, when we were talking about like the visuals, we were talking about the different animals, was that Douche Bag Pelican.
Yeah.
You want to kind of like provide some insight on your thoughts on the pelican?
So yeah, like you said before, he had motives.
Yes,
He had a reason to take the Jumanji thing. He like all the Stampede and everything. They were all going straight. The pelican slows down, scurries over to the book, picks it up and dips, and heads for the water.
Exactly.
And that was, he wouldn't follow the pack or anything.
Yeah, I've never seen, unless it's a French fry, I've never seen a pelican go that hard towards something before and just completely sidetrack. And then, not only that, it's smart enough to understand how trading works. Because Robin Williams catches a fish with one hand, nice, and tosses the fish, and the pelican effectively goes, "Thank you, here's your board game back." Which is... this is the smartest pelican we've ever seen. And what's funny about it, no other animal that's come out of this board game has any type of like supernatural intelligence or anything. So it's just kind of weird. It just...
Pelican is an entrepreneur.
Yeah, exactly. He understands profit. He's like, if I collect a board game, then I can get 5 fish, and then I collect them. But ever since that, I've never trusted pelicans. I would suggest no one trust pelicans.
Fuck pelicans.
I was just gonna say, watch, there's gonna be someone out there. Listen, I have a pelican, his name's Todd, and he's the sweetest bird there ever was. Cool, man. Fucking cool. General question here.
Yeah.
If Jumanji was a real game, like it functioned the way it does in the movie, including the fact that when you beat it, everything reverts back, would you play it?
No. Figure it out. What I'm asking.
No, I would say with the right crew of people, I would play, right?
Really?
Because, well, because here's the thing. You would need to play it with people you truly trust that are courageous. Because the last thing you want is to get stuck in the game and they're like, all right, we're done playing, which is what happened with Alan. So you gotta make sure that you're playing it with a trustworthy group of people.
Yes.
Preferably people with guns, weapons, machetes. Preferably with people that are prepared for whatever comes out. I would not play this game in like my underwear in my bedroom. I would play this like in a park with my friends.
Like an F-16 strapped on your back.
Yes, exactly. I got a turret strapped to the top of my car, and I'm rolling my dice from there. But yeah, I'd play.
Well, like for what benefit? Just for fun?
I mean, dude, that's a cool experience. That's a life-changing experience. You get to time travel.
Even if your friend dies.
Name me one other thing you get to do where you time travel.
Nothing, but like, is it worth dying over?
That you're assuming I'm gonna die. I'm assuming I'm not gonna die. That's the difference between our thought process. That's why you won't play it and I will.
I think you're underestimating what you can shoot. If there's
maybe one thing that came out of that game that you couldn't have shot.
Quicksand.
Okay, well, you know what? First off, the quicksand, also another thing with the quicksand. If I am a quicksand and you hand me a freaking flute or something that comes across, when he yells, "Stop handing me things that fall apart," that was like I was thinking the same, what are you guys thinking? You don't have a 2x4 up there? Anyway, so no, quicksand, you can use your gun as something to hold on to and leverage. Someone can at least hold you. Well, and also, like, we would be prepared for quicksand. Like, we saw the movie. So actually, well, they'll even put it out there. Have I seen the movie?
No, you have not.
All right, that does change things.
But this game's dangerous, it summons things, but you don't know exactly what things, how these people...
But I think I could figure out from the artwork of the game that it's some type of like jungle theme. Yeah. So I would think I would play if I felt well equipped and I was with people that I felt like would continue the game no matter what.
Yeah.
Because really, you only need one person to survive, if you think about it. Like, say you have 4 people playing. No, that's not true. Because you need to get to the end of the game, and if somebody gets stuck, like if it gets to someone's turn and they're dead, that's a fair question.
That's a good question. Nobody thought of that.
I think
if somebody died, would the game be over?
Well, it actually brings up a fair question. Can you die? If it doesn't address it in the rules, then maybe you can't die. Maybe it's true, because we never actually saw anybody... No, that's not true. That's not true. Because we saw the mosquito stab to the forehead. So these things do physically affect people.
Yeah, but like, there's still the question of what happens when you die to the game?
Right.
Does the game keep going? Does it just skip your turn from then on?
It is interesting because we did not see that situation.
No.
It's a fair question. Assuming that if you die, you can't continue to play, that actually is an interesting wrinkle. I think I'd answer it differently if I was, not married and didn't have as much kind of like on my shoulders. Like if I was kind of 15 and more free, maybe I'd be a little bit more. Oh man, this is tough. I was kind of thinking this was a slam dunk.
Yeah.
Because it'd be fun. I mean, the answer is what's the worst that can happen? It's death.
I don't know. I don't know if it'd be fun, but it'd be something to talk about after you do it, if you live.
Well, it would be really cool. That's a hell of an experience.
Yeah.
How many people can you time travel? You're going through all this stuff. I guess I could see the flip side of it though, where someone says, "What was the fun part of playing Jumanji?" Because what was the highlight? Like they were terrified of every single thing that happened to them. The most fun part was watching the piece slide across the board. It's kind of a shitty game, actually. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. How just like why do they have to choose this type of board game?
Okay, I take away everything I just said. I'd rather play Uno. At least there's a fun part of Uno. You're right. The fun part of this game is just surviving all the scary situations.
The actual game is shit. You just move.
Yeah, that is a rough game. Yeah, you're right. I probably wouldn't play that.
If it was shoots and ladders with that, you would have played it.
To your point, there needs to be something there, right? There needs to be some type of reward at the end. Like, it should be, other than just having your life, like it should be, okay, if you beat Jumanji, then you get like a giant bar of gold or something. Mm-hmm. There should be some type of incentive to complete the game beyond just reverting back to what it was before. That's a good point. That would make it more enticing. You're right. The negative so outweighs the positive when I think about it.
The only positive is the story, really.
Yeah. The positive is the story and time travel. I just think the concept of time travel is cool, so imagining going through it is just kind of, I don't know, something I'd like to do.
How much money would you have to be paid to play Jumanji?
It would have to be enough that I would never have to work again to take that risk.
Really?
Yeah, so, I mean, if you really think about that, some people will think, oh, that's like a million or something. No, you probably need somewhere between 5 and 10 million.
I honestly do it for 500K. And maybe it's just because I'm a kid and I don't really have like the full concept and grasp of money, but...
You have an extra 15 years of accumulating interest, which would help.
Yeah.
One thing, real quick, I thought was really funny. All the driving in this movie is drifting. It looks like a Fast and Furious movie. No one drives at an overrated speed in this movie. And no one drives straight. Flying around. It's really funny. I just think it's silly. Yeah. And between the cop car is probably the only one that drives at an overrated speed, and it gets
it's the most destroyed one.
Exactly. All the other cars are either squished or drifting across the screen. I just thought it was interesting. This is just a weird little technical thing. The lion survived the monsoon. Did you ever think about that?
That's good.
He was trapped in the bedroom, which I call bullshit on. A lion could break through a wooden door, especially an old, nasty wooden door. The nails went right through it. There's no way it couldn't break out if it wanted to. And I think there's windows in that room. Why couldn't it just get out the window? Aside from all of that, when the monsoon hits and it's trapped in said room, how does it not drown? Because you actually see the lion when the ant comes home and opens the bedroom door. And the lion's there yawning. I do like the lion portrayal there. I do kind of think it's cool that there's like, oh, the lion just decided to chill after it got locked in the room.
I know, but like, what's it chilling when the monsoon hit?
No, I would think not. No, that would, oh my God, how funny would it have been if during the monsoon you just see the lion just in the background just floating. The crocodiles and the lion ball just comes out of the water. You're like, Jesus Christ.
When they open the door, just a lion comes flying out the door.
It's a sea lion. For as much as it doesn't have a very engaging reason to play the game, the actual construction of this board game is extremely impressive.
What do you mean?
In terms of it survives getting beaten, battered, it goes in water. When it falls, it always falls in the perfect way and closes in on itself, which I imagine is just physics. That's how physics works.
On the final scene though, there was like the smallest little cliff when the earthquake happened.
Right.
And the board game happens to land on that cliff and fold so it doesn't tip off.
It's perfect. Yes.
Yeah.
And I bring that down to whoever designed the box in this game is freaking hella impressive. I'm just saying, why don't, like, I need that guy designing my backgammon set. Have that guy make chessboards, because that guy's chessboard will last forever. That will be an heirloom that will go down generations and generations. I'm just thinking, like, sand, dirt, that thing was buried in shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just really amazing how well that box held up over time.
Yeah.
I also want to think about, because someone had to make it, right? Unless it was like God sending it down or something, right? So did whoever make the box like design for it to be evil and like go after kids and all that stuff? Or do you think it was something like the guy made Jumanji and then like he gets possessed or the box gets possessed or something like that?
Maybe it was for a type of like a thrill entertainment. Like some people like that kind of thrill and action in their life. So some people might want to do it.
Yeah, but I guess I'm asking more of like, how did the magic get put into it to make it so it can do what it does?
I have no clue.
You know
That's why we need the prequel.
We need the prequel.
Yeah.
I think it's just a very interesting question. Speaking of the Monsoon that we were just talking about with the sea lion and such, would you fight a crocodile for your girl?
For Lauren?
Not my Lauren, but yeah.
I'd fight a crocodile for both.
I would hope you would fight for your sister-in-law as well.
Yeah, I would fight for both lions, I'd say.
Okay, fair. I wouldn't fight for your Lauren. She's not part of our family yet. She's still got to earn those wings. Mine has. She's married into the family. You have to respect that. I don't have to respect Lauren. I can give a fuck. So don't stay away from Crocs, Lauren. I'm not helping you out. All right, Mason, why don't we wrap this up? Let's talk about how we think Jumanji held up in terms of hold-upability.
So overall for visuals, I don't think it held up very well. But for like the writing and just overall plot and theme, it's good. And again, the ending bumped it up a few points. I'm gonna give it probably 5.5 out of 10.
5.5? Jeez.
Yeah.
I feel like that's pretty rough.
I just think like, you know, especially the visuals are very distracting. And there's like certain moments with like either the kids or like just certain little plot points that are very annoying to me.
Questionable. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I personally, I'm gonna give it a little bit better score. So I totally agree with you in terms of like the visuals don't hold up, especially compared to what I thought as a kid. When I was a kid, I thought they were amazing. Now, not so much.
Yeah.
So visually not great, but I am just a Robin Williams stan. I love him. I'll always love him. I'll go to the mat defending him any day of the week. So between his performance, Bonnie Hunt, like there's a lot of strong performances in this, and I think it's a well-paced movie. Keeps your attention. Definitely geared more towards kids than adults. Taking all of that into consideration, plus my little personal history with it, obviously from loving it as a kid, I am gonna give it an 8 out of 10 in terms of hold-upability. You have your visual flaws there, definitely some questionable things in the plot, but overall, I think it's a really fun family movie, and I would encourage anyone to watch it.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this video.
Like and subscribe and let us know what you thought about the movie in the comments below.
Let us know if there's any movies you want us to watch. Who knows, maybe we'll watch them together.